Later, Sergeant Abraham Neumann and Dr. Cerelio walked side by side through one of the colony's stark metal corridors. The lighting panels overhead flickered occasionally. Nothing unusual for C-Deck, but lately even routine malfunctions felt like ill omens. Neumann glanced at the workers shuffling past them. Dark circles under their eyes, unfocused stares, muttering to themselves like sleepwalkers. Look at this place. Half the colony's wandering around like it's the end of the world. Cerelio didn't answer right away. His gaze drifted forward, but his mind was elsewhere. Back at the podium, back to the apparition no logic could justify. When I saw Katie, I told myself it was stress, grief. Neumann slowed, surprised by the admission. I've been a skeptic all my life, Cerelio continued. No fate, no afterlife, just biology and decay. His voice wavered. But if I were a spiritual man, I'd be praying right now. Neumann frowned. I just don't get it. How do you take a bunch of blue-collar miners and wind them up so tight they killed for a rock? Cerelio gave a thin, almost sad smile. People have been doing the same thing over a chalice, a scroll, a piece of bone in a gilded box. He gestured toward the lift doors ahead. Fate doesn't care about a reason. It cares about meaning. And that thing out there, whatever it is, people think it means something. The lift door opened with a soft hiss, swallowing their voices as they stepped inside. Hanford finally did something useful. He granted me access to Natalia Deshanov. She's still sedated after the incident. I'll be questioning her soon. Neumann raised an eyebrow about why she snapped, and why she killed a man without hesitation. Cerelio replied. I want to know what she saw down there, what she felt. Something pushed her past reason. Neumann huffed a dry, humorous laugh. Right, another conversation with someone under the marker spell. Can't wait. Cerelio didn't respond. Didn't have to. The gravity of the situation set between them like a third presence in the elevator. In a large vehicle maintenance bay, every surface etched with whispers and shuffled footsteps. Crates, fuel drums, and idle loaders had been pushed aside to make space for a gathering. Hundreds of miners, engineers, and laborers squeezed shoulder to shoulder beneath flickering industrial lights. At the front, elevated on a stack of cargo pallets like a pulpit, stood Deacon Abbott. His voice boomed through the makeshift congregation. Everyone has a theory, he declared, arms spread wide. Scientists call it a relic. Scholars call it an artifact. PSEC calls it dangerous. But we know the truth. We hear it. The marker is talking to us. A low murmur rippled across the crowd. Abbott stepped forward. You've felt it, haven't you? The dread, the sleepless nights, the heavy thoughts. His tone rose. This is not a suffering. This is preparation. The marker is stripping away the illusions of material existence, showing us that flesh, this mortal shell, means nothing. Soon, Abbott continued, voice swelling with ecstasy, this shell we inhabit will be obsolete. Soon, we will shed these bodies, transcend, and enter the next life. Not through death, but through transformation. He lifted his arms toward an invisible heaven. We must be prepared. Cheers erupted. Detective Vera Cortez watched with parted lips and shining eyes. She looked utterly captivated. Abbott's voice rose above the frenzy, like a storm coming in the void. Neumann pushed through the crowd. Among the believers he spotted Detective Cortez, smiling faintly as if in a dream. He caught her arm. Vera, please, look around you. Listen to him, he's insane. She turned to him slowly, unperturbed by the desperation in his voice. Is he? Or are we just afraid of the truth? Neumann stared at her. His partner, his friend. What happened to your rational scientific religion? He demanded. Cortez's expression softened with something like pity. The marker. This planet, our purpose, it's all science, Abraham. Evolution, we can't escape fate. None of us can. Before Neumann could respond, Marla's frantic voice exploded through his earpiece. Abe, the marker is being loaded now. It's in the colony, right now. A beat of silence, then chaos. Every unitologist in the square reached beneath their jackets, coats, and tool belts. The glint of metal flashed everywhere at once. Guns. A high-pitched noise screamed across the plaza, a shrill frequency that cut into the skull. People collapsed, clutching their ears, shrieking. Neumann staggered, vision blurring. Abbott's voice rose over the noise. Listen to the voice of God and prepare yourselves. As though commanded by an unseen hand, hundreds of believers lifted their weapons to their own heads. Newman's eyes met Cortez's, and she met his eyes gently, almost lovingly. Don't worry, Abraham. I'll see you soon. And the gun went off. A single thunderclap of multiple weapons firing at once followed. A sound that shook the colony like an explosion. Blood misted across the plaza. Bodies hit the floor in waves. And silence followed like death itself. Newman fell to his knees, shaking, pulling Cortez's body into his arms. His head lolled against her chest. Later that evening, under the glare of construction lights and rubble of heavy machinery, PSEC Officer Jones and McCabe approached the entrance to the transport bay. The marker had only just arrived inside the colony, its sheer presence seeming to darken the air around it. Even the fluorescent lamps overhead flickered more than usual. Foreman Colin Barrow stood over the loading rig, hands braced on his knees, sweat beading along his brow. Behind him, workers sat slumped on crates or leaning against walls, pale. One man lay on the concrete with a blanket thrown over him, groaning. Barrow looked up as the officer approached. You two here to check on cargo? He asked, voice strained. Good. Maybe you can tell me what the hell's going on. Everyone involved in the transfer got sick halfway through. One guy puked his guts out and passed out clean. He gestured vaguely towards the unconscious worker. Never seen anything like it. Jones exchanged a glance with McCabe. McCabe cleared his throat. Foreman, are you aware of what happened in Union Square? Barrow blinked. No, he said slowly. What happened? Jones shifted uncomfortably. Abbott held a rally. Hundreds of Unitologists were there. The moment the marker entered the colony, McCabe finished for him. They all killed themselves. The foreman stared at them, stunned in absolute stillness. His cigarette slipped from his fingers and fizzled out on the deck. All of them? Jones nodded grimly. Every last one. Barrow looked back towards the loading bay, towards the sealed chamber where the marker loomed unseen. His face drained of a little color it had left. Cretaceous stood before the large vid screen, hands clasped behind his back as Captain Benjamin Mathias appeared in shimmering blue light. Mathias wasted no time. I want the bodies from Union Square frozen immediately, he said. Every one of them. I want them in top condition when the Ishimura arrives. Cortesia raised an eyebrow. They're dead, Captain. Does it make a difference? Mathias's gaze sharpened, not upset, but impatient, as though Cortesia had missed something obvious. Better safe than sorry, Mathias replied. All Aegians of the church are treated the same way, you know this. Cortesia hesitated only a moment before nodding. Very well, you'll get your cemetery. A faint smile curled across Mathias's lips. Too small to be comforting. Good. Our future depends on it. Do not let them down. The transmission cut instantly. Cortesia stared at the dark screen for a long moment. Then without a word, he turned towards his desk and began issuing orders. Deep within the colony's substructure, Sergeant Neumann followed a lone technician through one of the massive megavents, a service tunnel large enough to drive a loader through. The technician glanced back nervously, his ID tag reading Supervisor Cameron. Almost there, Sergeant, he said. You're not going to believe this. They rounded a bend, a portable lamp that had been set on the floor ahead, casting a harsh circle of light over something smeared along the metal wall, a fleshy mass, pulsing faintly as though something alive struggled beneath the surface. A sickly, rotten stench filled the air. Neumann grimaced, covering his mouth. Jesus, what the hell is that? No idea, Cameron said. I was clearing a blockage and found that. It wasn't here last night, I swear, he gestured. I thought PSEC should see it. Neumann crouched and raised his scanner. Looks organic. He reached towards it with a sampling rod. The blob twitched. Both men jerked back. Newman's shock lasted only a heartbeat. Then he pulled a torch and ignited it with a sharp hiss. Wait, Cameron blurted. The vents feed into the whole colony. Neumann stepped closer, flame hissing as he pressed it towards the foul growth. Exactly. Fire washed over the blob. It sizzled and shriveled. Satisfied, Neumann snapped the torch off. Log it. Seal the section. I'm reporting this to command. He turned and strolled back into the darkness without looking behind him. Cameron lingered, staring at the scorched mass, dread crawling up his spine. At PSEC headquarters, the main operations room felt tighter than normal. Jones and McCabe stood shoulder to shoulder before the central holo table, scrolling through a growing list of red-flagged cases. Assault, battery, homicide, over and over. McCabe shook his head. I haven't seen numbers like this in... ever. Not even during the labor riots in Titan Station. Jones exhaled through his teeth. Feels like people are tearing each other apart out there. The door slid open. Neumann strode in. Jones turned. Sarge, the markers in the colony. They hauled it in about an hour ago. Loading bay is quarantined now. Foreman Barrow reported half his crew puking or fainting during the move. Neumann approached the holo table. His eyes swept the crime log. Column after column of violence. He frowned. Wait, he muttered. Aside from the suicide cluster, there haven't been any new murders or assaults since, what, 1400 hours? Yeah, McCabe said. It just stops. Nothing in the last couple of hours. Everyone went dead quiet after Union Square. The silence between them felt heavy. Neumann asked, Where's Marla? Jones rubbed his temples. Went home sick, bad headache, she said. Could barely stand. Newman's stomach sank. More insomnia. Deep below the colony's main decks, the chamber housing the marker was quiet. Too quiet. The usual hum of machinery felt muffled here, swallowed by the sheer presence of the artifact. The metal doors hissed open, and Hanford Cartasia stepped inside, alone. As he approached the monolith, he stopped at his base and lifted a hand. His fingers trembled, whether from awe or fear, he couldn't say. He pressed his palm to the marker's cold, etched surface. So the stories were true, he whispered. You may hold the secret after all. Eternal life, the journey beyond death. He closed his eyes, voice drifting into something almost prayer-like. The Ishimura will be here soon. Your people will decipher you, understand you. And when they do, we will all be set free. The marker gave no response, but Cartasia stood there a moment longer, hands still resting against the ancient stone. When he finally began to turn to leave, he walked with the certainty of a man who believed the future belonged to him. Dr. Sorelio arrived at the modest workers' block apartment. Unit 2C. Mrs. Fletcher, gray-haired, eyes red from sleepless nights, met him at the door before he could even knock twice. Doctor, thank you for coming, she said, voice fraying. It's my husband. He hasn't been himself since the dig, since they found the marker. She hesitated on the word, as if it left a bad taste on her mouth. Sorelio followed her inside, the lights flickering, casting the hallway in jittering shadows. The door to the back room was half open. Something inside glowed faintly, like paint catching moonlight. Sorelio stepped inside and stopped cold. Every wall was covered, floor to ceiling. Markings spiraled and repeated in looping, alien symmetry. The same symbols from the marker. In the far corner, Mr. Fletcher was crouched on the floor, knees to his chest and rocking. His fingers were blackened with ink. His eyes were wide and unusually unblinking. The key is death, and death is the answer. The door opens in death, he mumbled, over and over as though reciting scripture. Sorelio inched closer, syringe ready. Mr. Fletcher, my name is Dr. Sorelio. I'm here to help you. Just hold still. Fletcher's head snapped up. His face twisted into a snarl, and he lunged towards the doctor. Sorelio crashed onto his back, syringe skittering across the floor. Fletcher's hands clamped around his throat with terrifying strength. Kill! He shrieked. Kill! Death! Sorelio clawed at his wrist, vision dimming. When suddenly Fletcher stiffened, eyes rolling back. Mrs. Fletcher stood behind him, hands shaking, the discarded syringe now buried in her husband's back. He slumped to the floor, unconscious. Sorelio coughed hard, gasping for air as the elderly woman helped him sit upright. Her voice trembled. Doctor, what is happening? Will my husband be okay? Sorelio stared at the walls, the symbols, and thought of Natalia's mania. He swallowed. I don't know. Right now, no one does. And for the first time in his career, Dr. Sorelio felt small, as though somewhere in the colony, An unseen tide was rising, and humanity was already waist-deep in the flood. Sergeant Neumann made his way to the silent residential wing, stopping outside Marla's apartment. He knocked once, no answer. The door was cracked open. He pushed it wider. Inside, the lights were low, except for the glow of a laptop illuminating Marla on the sofa. Her face was pale, eyes locked onto a paused vidlock of the marker. "Marla," Neumann said, relief fading immediately into anger. "You're supposed to be home resting." She barely looked up. "I am. Resting my body, not my brain. I think I'm close, Abe. Look, there's structure in the glymph repetition. See this one here and this one? It's like a code, a message. I'm decoding it." Neumann stared in disbelief. "You faked a headache just to obsess over that thing?" Marla's eyes never left the screen. Neumann stepped forward, voice sharp. "A solution? You think cracking some alien Sudoku is going to get Cartasia to dump the marker? We've had over 100 assault cases, 52 suicides just today. Because of that thing. I found some kind of growth in the mega vents as well. Something biological." He stopped. She wasn't listening. She hadn't heard a word. Her pupils dilated, reflecting the marker's image like it had nested in her mind. Voice cracked with frustration. "Marla, the marker's evil." That word finally cut through. She blinked, turning toward him slowly. "Evil?" She echoed. "You're the one who always said evil doesn't exist, that there's just people, and the choices they make." Newman's jaw tightened. "The marker isn't a person." "No," she agreed, sitting straighter. "It's a chunk of rock. A carved chunk of rock. Do you understand what that means? Someone made it. Someone intelligent. Alien life, perhaps. And this could be the breakthrough humanity has been waiting for." Neumann stared at her, horrified at how easily logic had twisted itself into devotion. "You sound like Vera," he said. Marla scoffed, but there wasn't a tremor beneath it. "I can't believe this. You, the big bad cop, getting all emotional over a rock?" Neumann stepped back towards the door, eyes burning. "People are dying, Marla. 52 people blew their brains out today. Natalia shot a man. This colony's coming apart at the seams, and you're sitting here chatting with a video file?" He opened the door. "I can't think of a better reason to get emotional." He left, slamming it behind him. Marla sat frozen for a moment, staring at the closed door, before, almost unconsciously, she turned back to the glowing symbols. Neumann stormed into Cartasia's office without waiting to be announced. The doors hissed shut behind him, sealing out the rest of the colony like a vault locking in pressure. Cartasia looked up from its console, visibly annoyed. "Sergeant, again?" Neumann slapped the datapad on the manager's desk, hard enough to rattle the pens. "We abort the operation," Neumann said. "Now, before we lose anyone else." Cartasia didn't pick up the datapad. He leaned back, fingers together. "We discussed this," he said calmly. "Billions invested. Plan a crack in 3 weeks. We are not throwing away the entire project because some miners are..." "Not some miners," Neumann snapped. "Look at the numbers." He pushed the datapad closer. Cartasia signed and finally glanced down. On the display was a clean list of colony deaths. 2.5 years of operation, 3 fatalities, work accidents. 2 weeks since the marker discovery, 65 fatalities, 52 suicides, 13 violent deaths. Neumann pointed. "Before that rock came out of the ground, we were safer than a Luna kindergarten. Since then, 65 people died. That's not bad luck, that's cause and effect." Cartasia barely blinked. 52 of these are suicides. As if that makes it better. Neumann shot back. "Please, just listen. We need to stop this. Shut it down. Dump the marker back in the hole and bury it so deep it never sees the daylight again." Cartasia stood slowly, walked to the window. "It's too late, Sergeant." Neumann stared at him, stunned. "What do you mean? You're the colony manager. Just issue the order." Cartasia turned, expression unreadable. "I can't. Even if I wanted to. Ishimura has arrived." Captain Matthias assumed full operational authority the moment she docked. Neumann stepped back as though struck. Outside the office window, through the faint shimmer of atmosphere and dust, the great shape of the USG Ishimura hung in orbit.